Hi everyone, and welcome to our student Q&A for our open day. My name is Monica Anderson and I'm a Wedding Preservation Officer at the University of Glasgow, and I'm joined by three of our amazing undergraduate students, Eleanor, Tayla and Ahmed. A little bit of a note, Ahmed is with us, but he's currently at the airport, so he's having to rely on the airport Wi-Fi, so he may be joining in and out of the chat today, but he is here with us to answer some questions. So just to start off, guys, let's just introduce ourselves. So Tayla, do you want to start first and give us a little bit of information about who you are, what you're studying?
Yeah, sure. My name's Tayla and I am a fourth year geography student at the University of Glasgow. So yeah, hopefully I can share some information about my experience that will be useful to some of you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And what about you, Eleanor?
Hiya, I'm Eleanor. I'm a fourth year history student and I'm from Dumfries and Galloway.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And like I said, we also have Ahmed with us, but his Wi-Fi is coming in and out, so I'm sure he'll join us when he can. So thank you so much to everybody who submitted questions for us to answer today. We've had quite a lot of them, so we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can in the next hour. But just to start us off, we've had quite a lot of people asking about what are the main factors that made you decide on coming to the University of Glasgow. So Tayla, do you want to tell us why you decided on Glasgow?
Yeah, of course. I think that one of the kind of main factors that drew me to Glasgow was the fact that University of Glasgow has a very campus vibe. So unlike some of the other universities in Glasgow and that I had looked at, the campus is really quite confined to a sort of smaller area. Which is really cool because it means that everything's really close by. It means that all of your kind of bars and restaurants are really close. Yeah, and I think that also the staff that I spoke to were super friendly and there were so many options for student societies and stuff, which we'll talk a little bit about in a wee while. But yeah, I think there were a few different factors, but those were the main ones.
Brilliant. So did you come onto campus before you became a student?
I did, yes. I actually did the summer school just before I became a student, so I kind of got a nice little chance to do some exploring when things were a little bit quiet over the summer. But yes, I definitely came and I did a little tour of the campus and got to see it that way.
Brilliant, fantastic. Eleanor, what about you? What made you decide on the University of Glasgow?
So as I said, I'm from Dumfries and Galloway, and there's a system in Dumfries and Galloway where a few people get to go to a university for a week in the summer. So it's kind of like a summer school, but it's to our area. And I came up in my fifth year of school and just absolutely fell in love with it. Fell in love with the teaching style, with the campus. The fact that it's like Hogwarts. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. It's like Hogwarts, great. And just the whole atmosphere. So I'm from the countryside. I wasn't used to cities or anything like that. And I just felt very at home in Glasgow right from the beginning. So I feel like, yeah, it was getting to know the campus beforehand and getting to sort of understand how the uni was set up.
No, absolutely. I think anybody who comes onto campus, it is really, really just amazing being on campus and being the main building. So definitely a reason why a lot of people are won over. Definitely had an impression on me when I came to study at Glasgow as well. So we've had a few questions coming in as well, asking about the kind of support that's available for students once they are at the University of Glasgow. So Tayla, do you want to tell us a little about the support that's available?
Yeah, of course. So as far as I'm aware, I'm sure it's the same with all other departments, but certainly as a geography student, there was a lot of sort of internal support. So you had your student advisor, which every student will get, and you'll be told who that is kind of right at the beginning of your degree, and that person should stay the same for the duration of your degree. But there's also different year heads. So for every year, a member of your department will be available to kind of support you with any concerns you might have. But you also have the Fraser building. That is a super important building that you will probably become very familiar with really early on. And it's right across from the library, and there are so many different student support services available within there. So everything from kind of careers to accommodation to financial support, all of that is right there. And super accessible. That's open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and you can either go in by appointment or you can kind of drop in if you have any issues. So there's also plenty of information in there that you can read. You can take away leaflets and pamphlets, so you're never going to be worried about where you can go to for support. There's always so many people around about you to offer that for you.
I think that's such an important thing to highlight, because I think sometimes when, like, we talk about university, a lot of it is really emphasizing the idea of being an independent learner, and it kind of makes it seem like you're on your own. But the reality is that there, like you said, there's so much support available, and that if you are struggling with something, if you do kind of put your hand up and say, I'm really, really struggling with this, can anybody help me? Usually like 10 people will put their hand up and say, yeah, I can help you with that. Or if they don't know the answer, they'll point you in the direction of someone who does. So I think that's really important to highlight, that there is that support available. And in addition to that as well, we've got support for specific student groups. So I myself am the main point of contact for student carers at the university, and we've got named points of contact as well for anybody who's care experienced, estranged, or a forced migrant. So that support is absolutely there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we've had a few questions about people talking about moving to Glasgow, and I know that neither of you, like you both said, you weren't from Glasgow originally. So how did you find that experience of moving to Glasgow, and did you find the people welcoming? Eleanor, do you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm from the countryside, and I lived in a village of 600 people my entire life. And then I came up to uni and was suddenly in halls living in close proximity to over 1,000 people. So it was a big culture shock for me. But I found, the fact that you're so involved in not only just the student community, but the West End community. So if at Glasgow Uni, you're in the West End, and it just feels like a nice big town. It doesn't feel like you're in the middle of a city, in the middle of all the hustle and bustle of that. But no, you feel like you're part of this community. And particularly walking backwards and forwards from halls at any time of day, you knew that other students were around, and you kind of felt connected with that. So I think just my biggest piece of advice is remembering you're not alone at any point, because everyone's sort of in the same position. And I think, that was what I'd say to anyone starting at any university, that you should just try and hold that in mind, because everyone's still trying to find their footing in the first few weeks and months.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing to remember, is that when you start in first year, everybody's kind of in the same boat as you, and everybody's new, and everything else is new to them as well. So that really leads us on to our next question really well. How easy did you find it to make friends when you came to Glasgow? Tayla, do you want to tell us about your experience of meeting people?
Yeah, of course. So I think we'll talk again a little bit about Freshers Week in a few moments. But Freshers Week, I think, is a really good way to find out what's available for you at the university. And I cannot recommend societies and clubs enough. And if you're anything like me, I know you'll go through a Freshers Fair and you'll come out with 50 leaflets, and you'll think to yourself, okay, cool, I'm going to join 25 societies in my first year, which will not happen because you don't have time for all of that. But that just goes to show how many options there are, and there's so many wild things that honestly, societies you couldn't even imagine are available for you. And if you're into sports, there's so many different amazing sports teams and sports facilities. And so I would say that societies and sports and clubs are a really good way to kind of get to know somebody in your first year. And yeah, some of them will maybe, you know, you'll have to sign up for the year or 6 months, but also it's totally fine. You know, a lot of societies are more than happy to have someone come along for a couple of weeks and see how it goes. And it's just such a nice way to meet some people. Also, I would say in your first couple of lectures and classes, don't be afraid to say hi to the person that sits next to you, because everybody is in the same boat and is starting fresh, and chances are they're probably just as nervous as you are. So there's definitely plenty of opportunities to make new friends.
Brilliant. Eleanor, what about you? Did you find it easy to make friends when you first moved to Glasgow?
Yeah, so when on the first night of freshers, I remember my flatmates wanted to go clubbing, and I'm not into clubbing. I'm not that person at all. And I ended up talking to one of the girls from the other flat across the hall, and she didn't want to go either. So we ended up just sitting in her room, chatting about books for a few hours, being proper little nerds, and then went to bed at 10:30. And I was like, I have a friend for life, because that was what I needed. And I think also don't be afraid to like look for people who have similar interests to you, like Tayla was saying. Go to clubs and societies, chat to people in lectures, because the people in your lectures are going to have the same interests as you. And I think that's the thing, just everyone, just start talking. Fresh is fair. If someone's waiting in the queue with you, have a chat. Literally everyone's just trying to make friends, and from one little conversation, someone stops being a stranger and starts being a friend. So
no, I think that's absolutely the best piece of advice. Just talk to people, because like I said, everybody's new at the beginning. Everybody's, you know, it's kind of like starting school again, and everybody wants to talk to everybody, and it's a really, really great atmosphere. And I think you're both absolutely right. It's meeting people in your course, but also meeting people in clubs and societies. I mean, I did my degree a while ago now. Let's not put dates in there, but I've still got friends who I met both in my degree course who are basically like family, but I also have friends who I met through clubs and societies that were doing completely different subjects to me. So you do get to meet people in lots of different ways at university, and especially at Glasgow, with all the societies and opportunities that are there. So based on that, I think I know what the answer is going to be, but would you recommend going to Freshers Week? Tayla, would you recommend it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think yes, it can be overwhelming. Like I said, you'll come away with so much information, and sometimes it can feel really difficult to know where to start. But much like we said kind of in the previous topic about making friends, I think that the people who sign up to attend Freshers Fair as kind of, you know, to manage stalls or to represent different clubs and societies, they're so eager to share their experience of Glasgow with you and to tell you all the best places to go and best things to do. So even if you do go and just have a quick wander around and leave, you don't necessarily need to chat to everyone and stop everywhere. But it does give you lots of different options, and they usually on the university website and a few different places, I think on Instagram as well, they'll tell you kind of what's lined up for the week. So there'll be certain events on that you can go to that maybe are more specific to your course or to your interests, and then yeah, if you like to go out to the clubs, like there'll always be opportunities for that and things, but yeah, it can be as chill or as intense as you want it to be, and you can get involved in as much or as little, but it definitely gives you an easy place to go and access all of that information.
Brilliant, thank you. Eleanor, what about you? Do you recommend going to Freshers Week?
I definitely do, and I think it's a good week to sort of get settled, understand the city a bit more, understand what you're doing a bit more before you get started on classes, because it's the week before classes. You might have a couple of academic things, but it's just that chance to sort of settle yourself in and really explore the city and really explore campus, because I've been here for 4 years. There's still bits of campus that I need to explore and understand. And I think, yeah, use your Freshers Week really wisely and get your Freshers Band so you have access to lots of different things. But yeah, just use it to explore and have fun and meet up with people that you maybe met on the first night. Ask them for a coffee, go along, use your Freshers Week for that, as well as going to like the set events.
Brilliant. So do you guys have any advice for what are the best clubs and societies to join? Eleanor, do you have any that you would recommend?
So I would recommend not like shoehorning yourself into any one thing. So I used to live with someone who was part of the pole dancing society, but also she was the president of a Russian society. So like there's a big mix and a big breadth there. And there are so many different things you can go to. Like Glasgow Uni has a Quidditch society and a Shrek society. So there's lots of different things like that. I personally went to a choir and creative writing society in the first year. And I love them both so much. And if you're into things like theatre, there's the Sicilian Society, there's STAG, which is students on student theatre at Glasgow. So there's lots of different things within each sort of genre of society that you can try out and give a go.
Okay, brilliant. Tayla, what about you? Are there any clubs or societies that you would recommend for somebody?
So I joined a couple of societies, one of which I stayed in for most of my degree actually, and the other one which I was in for 2 years. So the first one being the Glasgow Student Dance Society, which I cannot recommend enough, GSDC, the Student Dance Company. If you're interested in dance at all, it's like full of dancers that are experienced, not experienced, people that have danced since they were 3 and people that have never danced at all. And that I made a lot of really great friends through that society. I was also in an a cappella society, which was lots of fun. And because I'm a geography student, I joined the Glasgow University Economic Sustainability team. So, or environmental sustainability team, sorry. So that was cool. That opened a lot of opportunities to get involved in stuff in the community and within the university, and was very specific to my degree. But I always remember hearing some really fun and niche societies. I always talk about the Cheese and Wine Society that I heard of in my first year, which I never joined, but there honestly are so many societies. Some of them are so specific and fun and unique and interesting. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. There is literally a society for every little thing you can think of. And I think the thing to highlight as well is that if there's something that you do or you're interested in, and there isn't a society at the university, you can actually set one up, and it's a little bit of work, but it's actually fairly easy to do so. Like my brother was a student at Glasgow as well, and he did kendo. And when he started, there wasn't a kendo society at the university, so he established one, and it's still running today, even though he left before me. So it really has been a while. But if there literally is something for everyone, and it's a great opportunity, like you guys said, to try something new that maybe you didn't even know you wanted to try. So that is really, really fantastic. We've had a few questions coming in asking about the flexible degree structure at Glasgow. Tayla, do you want to tell us about your experience with the flexible degree structure?
Yes, definitely. I love talking about this because it's not something that a lot of universities offer, and it was so helpful for me because I came to university and I wasn't really sure, despite having applied for what I applied to study. I think that I ended up, I just wanted to try different things and wanted to be sure. And I think that the flexible degree structure is really good for kind of giving you a breadth of different information and subject areas that you can study and learn from in your first year. So basically the way it works, to sort of summarize, is you will pick 3 different subjects in your first year. So if you've applied for a single honours, you will pick 2 other subjects that are part of the flexible degree structure. Or if you've picked a joint honours, you would do your 2 joint honours subjects, and then you would pick 1 more to go with that. And this can be such a variation. So I did, for example, in my first year, I did geography, sociology and economics, but I could have done a science, I could have done a more kind of humanities based subject to go with that. And then when I got to my second year, I dropped sociology. So I did economics and geography at level 2. And I picked up, for my second year, I picked up 1 more level 1 subject. So I did Spanish. So in my second year, I did level 2 geography, level 2 economics, and level 1 Spanish. And then when it got to 3rd and 4th year, I was kind of right up until the last minute, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to do a joint or a single honours in geography and economics. And kind of at the last minute, I thought, right, I'm just going to focus on geography because I love it so much. And that's me, yeah. So I did my single honours in geography, but the good thing about the flexible degree programme is that it really does, or the structure, it really does give you kind of such a variation of things that you can study in sort of different different areas that you can look into in your first and second year, and then gives you a little bit of flexibility when it comes to choosing your actual honours degree subject as well. So yeah, it was really great for me.
Yeah, similarly, I was one of those students that definitely used the flexible degree structure to its full advantage, and it was actually one of the reasons I really wanted to come to Glasgow, because it does give you that flexibility without kind of having that pressure of, well, are you going to have to do an extra year? You can really try different things, and I absolutely loved it, like you. So we've had a few questions come in as well, just asking about the difference between what was it like being at school versus being at university. So Eleanor, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you found that transition from school to university?
Yeah, so I actually took a year out after school. I had a big gap between school and university. And I remember my mum being like, okay, well, you're going to have to take a wee bit of time to get used to like the rigor and the structure of learning again. And I think the main difference was in school, it's quite set out. You work 9 till 3 or whatever your school hours are, and you have something all the time in that time period. But obviously at uni, it's a bit different. There's a lot more solo study. So in my first year, as Taylor was saying, we do 3 subjects. So I did philosophy, history, and English lit. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think I had about 3 lectures for each of those and a seminar. So lectures are when you sit with your whole cohort of half a year sometimes, but for history, there were 500 of us in one big room, and you'd sit and you'd do a lecture and you scribble down your notes and try and process that as you go along. And then a seminar is a lot more personal. So you're in groups of about 10 to 12 people in a smaller room, and you sit down and you have a conversation about work. So that's more like working stuff out together and having a chance to have a conversation and to pull at each other's ideas. They're also the sort of places where you might have to do a presentation or something like that. So you have one of those a week for each of your subjects, and that's really helpful to sort of check in with how you're doing. I know like philosophy do like a weekly little quiz that checks how you're doing, and if you pass that, you get 10% of your grade if you pass everyone, so that's great. So there's just little things like that that are really helpful, and yeah, that's mainly the way that it differs from school, that there are 2 distinct ways of teaching, but it's a good hybrid. And then most of the rest of the time I just spend in the library and doing personal study. So our library is over 12 levels, and each level has a different rating of whether it's quiet or medium noise, or whether you can chat on it, and it sort of goes up as you go along. So you can kind of choose your work environment. And I think that's very different from school, because obviously you don't have much say over what classroom you can be in and what that environment's like. But if you want to choose a more quieter space, you can, or if you like background noise. We've also got a new building on campus, the James McLean Smith Learning Hub. And that's got so many places to just sit down and do your work and just have a bit of peace and quiet, but also go and like have some nice food. They've got lovely cafes in there. So yeah, it's definitely more autonomous, and you get to make more decisions about how you like to learn.
Absolutely. I think I would definitely agree with you that it's that element of kind of organizing your own time, but it also gives you, like you said, a lot more freedom, because you can really schedule your learning around what suits you, unlike at school where you have that dictated timetable. So it does mean that, for example, I had friends who they did their best studying late at night. So they were the kind of people that would be in the library just as it was closing. I myself was more of a morning person, so I would be there first thing, but you do have that ability to just really balance and pick what suits you and really adapt to what works for you as well. So that freedom, it can be a little bit daunting at the beginning, but it's definitely, you can really adapt it to your needs. We've had a few questions coming in about accommodation as well. And Eleanor, I know that you stayed in uni halls when you were a student. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what staying in University of Glasgow accommodation is like?
Yeah, so I stayed in Murano, which is the biggest halls. As I said earlier, it was over 1,000 students, and it's like a little village. So there's always other people around. My halls were shared bathroom, shared kitchen. So all our halls, apart from Wolfson, which is by the vet school, which is a bit further out, they're all self-catering. So if you don't know how to cook, now's your time to learn. But you can live with in Murano 5 people or up to 12 people. I lived in a 5-person flat with 4 lovely girls. And it's just an experience to sort of get to know people really well. Other halls have en suites, so it's really up to you what you prefer, whether you can brave sharing a bathroom with someone or whether you'd rather have your own space a bit more. But no, I definitely recommend living in halls. As I was saying earlier, you never feel alone. There are always people traveling backwards and forwards. I remember in Freshers Week, there was just this sort of atmosphere of, if you're walking on the street and you end up walking at the same speed as someone, then you just end up chatting to them because you'd know that they were also going from Murano to uni, and you just have a conversation and get to know each other. And I've never experienced anything quite like it in camaraderie, and I think it's just so lovely and so good. And it's something that, yeah, if you get the chance to live in halls, which you will be offered, there's a promise that every undergraduate student will be considered for halls, you should definitely go for it.
Absolutely. So there's a huge amount of variety, and apart from that, you also have some of the private accommodation. So there's lots and lots of options, but it's definitely a bit of an experience moving in with new people for the first time. Loads of questions coming in about Glasgow and just what it's like as a city. So Tayla, do you want to tell us how would you describe Glasgow to someone who's thinking of moving to the city?
I would say that Glasgow is incredibly multicultural and diverse. There's lots of stuff going on here constantly, which I absolutely love. There's a really big music scene, which hopefully will kind of start thriving again soon. Obviously, the last year has been a bit different for everybody. But kind of in its prime, I think there is something, I'm going to make up a number here, but I swear it's something like 750 live performances a week across the city, just in different bars or kind of like in small community centres. Or we've got obviously the Hydro in Glasgow, so there's a few kind of bigger venues as well for music. There's also just so many friendly people here. If you're coming from abroad and you don't speak English as a first language, do not be intimidated by the strong Glaswegian accent. I promise everyone's really friendly. It really is just such a great city, and there's so much to do. It's also, though, not a massive city, so I love the fact that you can kind of get most places by cycling. You can even walk. I stay in the city centre, which is quite fortunate, but for me to walk from here to the university, if I wanted to, it would only take about 45 minutes, or I could cycle in 20 minutes, or you've got the subway. It's just really easy to sort of get around. So it's kind of a great combination of that sort of city feel. You've got everything you need, but also if you live in one of the, as Eleanor was saying, the West End's kind of got its own little bubble. It feels really nice over there. Or if you go to the south side, you don't really need to sort of trek into the city centre to get everything you need. So yeah, it's just a really fun and friendly city, and I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't been here before.
Absolutely. Eleanor, what about you? How would you describe Glasgow as your experience been like with the city?
So there's this really cheesy phrase you'll see all over Glasgow, which is "people make Glasgow," which we all sort of roll our eyes at, but it is very true that like it is very much all about the community feel. I know I've said it a lot, but there is just this sort of thing that you're part of a wider community, and anyone is welcome. That's just the big atmosphere that Glasgow gives off. And as Tayla was saying, the West End is just so nice. You're obviously in the city, but there are so many green spaces that you can go to. There's Kelvin Grove Park or the Botanics, and it's just nice. They're nice to like escape and have a bit of free time and just wander around and clear your head for a bit. There's also so much going on with lovely bars and restaurants and so much good food. All your student loan will go on food. I cannot stress enough. You will have no money because of how good the food is. But it's it's just that sort of lovely community vibe, and I can't imagine living anywhere else.
Absolutely. I definitely agree about the food comment there, Eleanor. There are so many good places to eat, both on campus and around the city. But I think you guys have highlighted like one of the kind of best things is that within Glasgow, especially with the university, you've got the kind of West End, which feels like almost a town within the city. but then you're so close to the rest of the city, and everywhere has got a kind of different feel to it, a different vibe. So you're in one place, but actually it's really, really diverse, and there's so many things. And like you were saying, Taylor, there's kind of there's something for everyone. If you're into music, if you're into culture, if you're into art, we've got so many great galleries as well. So it is a really, really great city, even though I might be a little bit biased, but I do think it's a great place to live. But I think we all seem to agree on that one. We've had a few questions as well about traveling out with the city. So kind of, are there opportunities for like weekend trips? Tayla, is there anything you'd recommend for someone if they're looking at maybe going on a trip somewhere or traveling a little further afield?
Yeah, I would say definitely start within Scotland. So I'm sure anyone who's deciding to move to Scotland or is moving to Glasgow will know that the Highlands are so close to Glasgow. Honestly, you're less than an hour's drive and you're already starting to see mountains. So I would definitely, I'm a huge advocate of staying local, especially in the current climate. It makes a lot of sense to not go as far afield. But you've got Loch Lomond is literally right there. As I say, that's definitely less than an hour's drive. If you were going for a weekend trip, you could head up to Fort William, which is kind of right at the base of Ben Nevis, which is the biggest mountain in the UK. So if you love to do some hiking or some outdoorsy stuff, Fort William has also got a lot of students that live up there that do sort of lots of outdoorsy things. So there's lots going on up there. You can also head out to the islands. So I kind of grew up down in Ayrshire, and the Isle of Arran is really close, really accessible. You can get a train ticket that literally goes right from Glasgow to Brodick. And that train ticket includes a ferry ride. And I honestly think that costs something like £14 or £15 return, and even cheaper if you've got a rail card. So those things are all really accessible. But also, if you're not from Europe and this is your first time in Europe, hopefully once flights start again, it's so easy to jump on a plane and go away for the weekend to one of the main cities in Europe, which is also really awesome. But I would say there are so many things in Scotland that you should check out first. Don't leave Scotland after your degree, if that's what you're going to do, and think, oh, I wish I had done some more stuff in the Highlands, because we have so much to offer here. Honestly, it's awesome.
Absolutely. And I think the great thing about Glasgow, like you said, it's got such great transport routes, so you can literally go anywhere in Scotland from like Glasgow Central or Queen Street, and the trains are great. So it's a really good city to be based in if you do want to do a little bit of exploring. We've had a few questions come in asking as well about scholarships, and there's definitely some great scholarships to be aware of. And what I would recommend to anybody who is looking for information on scholarships is, if you want to go, we have a dedicated page for scholarships where basically you can type in what kind of degree you're going to be doing. So whether you're coming in to do an undergraduate or postgraduate, what subject it's in, whether you're a Scottish student, an international student, and it'll come up with a list of scholarships that are available for you. And there really, really are loads of scholarships to look into. We've got things like our talent scholarship for Scottish students. We have scholarships that are for specific degree areas. So if you are looking for any information like that, please do check out our website, because all of that information is available there, and there are really lots and lots of opportunities. And relating to that, we're having a few other questions coming about how expensive it is to live in Glasgow. So Eleanor, do you want to tell us about kind of your experience about the cost of living in the city and studying at the university?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of how you want to live. It's up to you. So there are loads of Lidls really close to the university. So if you want to go get a nice cheap Lidl meal, that's available to you. There's also, if you're on the other end of the spectrum, a Waitrose very close by as well. So it's really up to you. We have a lot of lovely greengrocers. There's a really good one called Roots and Fruits, and they do a really good student discount. So you can get lots of locally sourced veggies and whole foods and stuff like that really cheaply. But yeah, as I said earlier, I just spend my money on food. So that's kind of my main thing. But there's a lot of student club nights and student offers on things like that, and in bars and things as well. So really, I would just shop around and keep your eye open for things. But there's information on the screen about where you can find out a bit more about the cost of living. But I'd say the main thing you will realise is food. And I think the thing that shocked me the most was how much cheese cost when I came to uni. I did not realise how expensive it was. So I think, ask your mum how much it costs for weekly shopping and go from there.
Yeah, I think that maybe the Cheese and Wine Society that was mentioned before can help in that respect as well. But there's a lot of chat about food to do, and again, that's not surprising because there are so many good places to eat in Glasgow, both in the West End and in the city and the South Side. But are there any good places to eat or drink on campus? Tayla, do you have any recommendations?
Yes, so there are a few different places. If you go to the library and you just want to grab something, there's a kind of dining hall right in the Fraser building right there. It has everything from vending machines to different meals, like hot meals that you can have throughout the day. I was notoriously bad as a student for just bringing like sandwiches to the library, and then that was kind of my sustenance. But I always said to myself, you know what, I should be like taking some time out. It's important to give yourself a bit of a break. Go grab a coffee, go and just detach yourself from your computer for just a little while. And that's literally right across from the library. So definitely remember to feed yourself and look after yourself. But there are a few cafes, as Eleanor was saying. The James McEwan Smith building, the brand new building, has got a few little cafes in there. There's also one, is it called One Cafe, I think, in the main building there's a cafe too. But if you fancy going for a little afternoon pint, then you could head over to Ashton Lane, or if you wanted to treat yourself to a bit more of a bougie lunch, Ashton Lane is so close to campus as well. You've probably heard of it. If you've been to Glasgow before, you've probably seen it and been on it, and that's literally, again, about a 5-minute walk from the library. So along with the kind of main street, Byers Road from the West End, there's lots of things right there. So yeah, definitely no excuses for not eating. Don't forget to look after yourself.
No, absolutely. And I think, yeah, there's just so many different kind of cafes. So like you said, depending on what you're in the mood for, if you want a hot meal or just something really quick to see you through that all-nighter, not that any of us did those, then there's definitely options there for you. Since we've been talking about a little bit of food as well, there seems to be a few questions coming about kind of the gym, and are there opportunities to kind of engage with that? So does anybody, Eleanor, do you want to chat a little bit about the Glasgow University gym and where it is and what's available in it?
Yeah, so the gym, again, is really close to the library. So if you want like to go for a swim, or I don't go to gym very often, so I don't really know what people do. Go for a little run on the treadmill or something during the day. That's really close by as well. And if you're living in halls, then you get your gym membership free for the year. So you just need to sign up through that. And that means you can go to the sauna or the steam room. You can use all the facilities, join all the sports clubs and things. There's lots of sports societies on campus, both using the gym as a facility and using the AstroTurf up by the vet school. And there's lots of opportunities to go and join those clubs and be involved with that as well. So whether you're into team sport or if you're into more individual things like swimming or weightlifting, whatever that is, there's those opportunities for that as well.
No, absolutely. So we've got a few gyms, like you mentioned. We've got the one on the main campus, but we've also got the one by the vet school. And I think the great thing is that they're so close by. So like you're saying, if you're sitting in the library, it is so easy just to, if you need that, half hour, 45 minutes just to get a break from studying, it's literally just down the road. And there's so many things. It's really huge. Like when you go into it, it doesn't look like there's so many floors in there, but you go in and it's just loads of opportunities, loads of different things that you can do. And there's kind of regular classes that you can sign up for, but there's also drop-in sessions. And I remember I really like those as a student because you don't really have to commit. It's not like you have to go every week. But if there were weeks where I just needed that break, you could just go in for that drop-in session where it's things like drop-in table tennis, where you can just switch off for a little while, play some table tennis, have a bit of a laugh, and then go back to the library and do some more studying. So it is there, and the facilities are really, really amazing. Like you said, Eleanor, if you're staying in halls, it's covered, the fee's covered, so that is a great opportunity just to kind of go, and it's a great place just to clear your head. And again, something for everything from like table tennis and the weights room to yoga. If you look at the GUSA website and if you have a look at what's available, it's really something for everyone and kind of all fitness levels as well. So it's not just, it's not just one thing. There's lots and lots of different opportunities there as well. We've had a few questions asking about how easy is it to have a part-time job while you're studying. Eleanor, do you have anything you'd want to say about that? Have you had a part-time job while you've been a student?
Yeah, so I'm a historic tour guide for university, and I absolutely love my job. It's so great. But what I would recommend with getting a job is don't overdo it. Don't try and do a full-time job alongside your degree. It's just not going to be good for your mental health. So I think the golden rule is no more than 15 hours part-time job, but I definitely don't even do that much. And I think, just plan your time well, choose a job that's going to like understand the fact you're a student, but also make sure that you still have time to rest and to go out and enjoy yourself with your friends. Because there is, as we said, there's so much going on and you don't want to miss out on that because you're too busy working with uni and doing a job at the same time. So it's manageable, but don't overly do it is what my advice would be.
I think that's really good advice. Just absolutely, it's totally manageable, but don't overdo it. Tayla, what about you? Have you had a part-time job while you've been a student?
I did, yes, and that is very good advice from Eleanor, because I, in my second year, definitely tried to overdo it with work, and it just did not impact well on my studying and my exams. I kind of lost focus because I get so blindsided by wanting to save money for the summer and things like that. So yes, definitely important to make sure that you've found that sort of work balance. But yeah, there's so many options in Glasgow because well, certainly for part-time, like there's a lot of students in Glasgow. There's 3 main universities, you've got the conservatoires, there's multiple colleges. So many employers in retail and in hospitality are definitely going to be accommodating to your schedule, which is really nice, especially because they're going to know you're a student and you have to do your work. And that obviously comes as a priority. But like Eleanor was saying, she's got a job through the university. And so there are a lot of on-campus jobs available. If you look in the right places, they are quite competitive, but they obviously also will work around your schedule and are worth checking out. So yeah, definitely try and find that balance and make sure that you're not overdoing it, but it shouldn't be an issue at all trying to find a part-time job if you want one.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, like you guys said, so there are opportunities on campus and you can work as part of your role as being a student. So we've got things like student ambassadors. There's opportunities that are kind of department specific. We've got a really great career service as well, and they have internship opportunities, so things to look into as well. But I think in terms of part-time work, it's definitely becoming quite common that you have a part-time job while you're a student, just to make a bit of money and help support yourself. So it's absolutely doable, like these guys have said today. But yeah, it's just something to be aware of. You don't want to be like working every minute that you're out of lectures, because you do want to give yourself that time to look after yourself and do other things and join all the amazing societies that we've been talking about today as well. A few questions, maybe understandably so, considering Glasgow's reputation in this area, asking about the weather and what the weather is like in Glasgow. Eleanor, do you have anything to say on the subject?
So in first year, my friend moved up from northeast England where it's quite rainy, and she moved to Glasgow without a rain jacket. And don't do that. Please bring a rain jacket. So it's quite wet. We're going through quite a sunny patch at the moment, which is nice. But it is quite a rainy place. So invest in a good jacket. And when the sun is out, everyone's out. It's like a big festival every time the sun's out. Everyone's very happy. So live for those days. Also, if you're used to warmer climates in the winter, I would definitely bring a winter duvet because it can get quite chilly. But it's not as bad as everyone says. You can cope with the weather.
Tayla, what has your experience been like with Glasgow weather?
Do you know, it's quite funny because it is rainy. I'm not going to lie, it is rainy. But for whatever reason, every year I just forget that I know it doesn't even rain a lot. Like the sunny periods must be better than the rainy periods, because I just sometimes will forget, and then you'll go through a 2-week period of rain and I'm like, oh, come on, where's the sun? But then you do get long stretches of good weather as well. My recommendation would be, if you have an iPhone, do not pay attention to Apple weather, because it will tell you that it is going to rain every day for the rest of time. And that is just not true. I don't know what it is about Apple weather, but it is always so overdramatic when it comes to Glasgow weather. And what I would also say is if you just try, I'm a huge outdoorsy person, and I always say that if I'm equipped for the weather, so if I go out with my rain jacket and I'm just prepared for it, then it just doesn't make me feel bad, because I go, do you know what, like, yeah, it's going to rain, but it's fine. I'll just embrace it. And there are lots of stuff that you can do indoors as well as outdoors. So don't be deterred by the rain. I promise it's not that awful.
I think as well, there's a certain charm, especially if you're on campus and you get one of those really kind of misty, wet days and you're in the main building. It does feel like you're on a movie set. So there is a certain amount of charm to the kind of mistiness and the rain in Glasgow. But like Eleanor said, when the sun comes out, it's fantastic, because literally everybody you know is sitting on the first patch of grass that they could find. So whether that's outside of the library or whether in one of the amazing parks close to the university, like if it's a sunny day, you can bet that Kelvin Grove Park and the Botanic Gardens are just going to be people on the grass having picnics. It's a really, really lovely, lovely atmosphere. So I think because we do get that rain, when it's sunny, people really embrace it. And there's nothing better than, sitting outside the library on a sunny day. And usually it happens when you are studying for exams. Glasgow gets the best weather at that time, but it's really, really lovely. So, and like I said, there really is a charm to like being on the main campus when it's a little bit wet and windy, and it does feel like you're in some film set. It's fantastic. I actually really like it. But yeah, it's amazing, and it's so Instagrammable. Like, it's so social media friendly as well. You take the best photos. But are there any tips that you wish you would have known before you came to Glasgow, or before you became a student at the University of Glasgow? Tayla, do you have anything that you'd wish someone would have told you before your first year?
I feel like I should have put more thought into this question. I thought I would have answers for everything. I would say probably just to try and embrace as much as possible. I'm a huge advocate of just saying yes to things, and I think that especially if you're a shy person, or you're coming to Glasgow for the first time and you don't know many people, I would say that sometimes some of the best opportunities and the best things that you can end up doing or getting involved in come from just a spontaneous interaction with someone you never expected to meet, who's like, oh, hey, I've got a friend that does this on a Tuesday night, should we go and check it out, or whatever, and I feel like those can end up leading to some really fun friendships and some really fun experiences. So I would say that try and push yourself to, even if you feel like saying no, or if you feel like being a bit of a hermit sometimes, just maybe take a chance and try something new, or just say yes to something that you would maybe normally say no to. And yeah, I feel like more often than not, it'll lead you to good places. So I would say that's probably some advice that I would certainly give and wish that I had had.
Brilliant. Eleanor, what about you? What advice do you wish someone would have given you before your first year?
Well, what Tayla was saying, always pack a raincoat. That's always good. But I think also just remind yourself that your grades aren't a be all and end all. Like, yes, you're at university to get a degree, and that's important. Like, don't get me wrong, that is possibly the most important part. But you're also living somewhere for 4 years, and you need to take your time to understand who you are outside of the family dynamic and all of that stuff, because it's the first time you'll live away from home. It'll be the first time you've had to cook your dinner for yourself every night, and all these different things, and use a laundrette. It's all new. So just take time and be patient with yourself. And if for the first year it's not feeling like you're going to get that first, that's not necessarily true. There's a classic saying in the arts department that D3s get degrees, and if you're just scraping by, that's fine. Like, as long as you're happy and healthy and eating 3 meals a day, then I feel like that's a win. So yeah, I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Don't beat yourself up about it, and don't over compare yourself to other people and what their grades are, and whether it looks like they're out every night enjoying themselves and doing whatever, and you're always in the library. Like, it's your life, and live it the way you want to live. And uni's what you make it. All those classic cheesy phrases, but they're true.
We love it. No, I think that's both of you. That's amazing advice, because it is, I think, especially coming into first year, it can be quite a kind of daunting transition sometimes. So just reminding yourself to be kind to yourself and really look after yourself, and not. First year is going to be like difficult for everybody, because it is the first year at university. You're going to be getting used to going to lectures. You're going to be getting used to a different form of assessment that you maybe had at school. So it is really important just to be really kind of yourself and take that time. So I think Eleanor and Taylor, that's amazing advice. And one thing I would always add to that is ask for help. That's the thing I would have known, because I kind of had that idea of university of independent learner. You do everything on your own. You have to manage everything by yourself. And that is absolutely not the case. If you are struggling with anything, if you don't understand anything, then do not be afraid to say, I actually really need help with this. And like I said before, you will find someone who is more than happy to help you. And if they don't know how to help you, they will point you in the direction of someone who does. So if you are struggling at all with anything, then just ask for help, because it's I say this constantly, but independent does not mean alone. So just don't feel like you have to do everything by yourself. It's absolutely okay to say, you know what, see that last lecture, I didn't really understand that. And chances are someone else probably didn't understand it either, and you can work through it yourself, or someone will say, well, actually, this is what this was. And that support network is amazing. And when you realize that you have that support there, it just, for me personally, it made university so much easier when I finally was like, actually, you know what, I do need help with this. So yeah, just be kind to yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and embrace all the opportunities that come your way. And we get to finish with a really lovely question, and it's one of my favorites, and it's, what is the best part of being a student at the University of Glasgow? Tayla, do you want to tell us what you think the best bit about being a University of Glasgow student is?
I was going to make a joke about not having to pay council tax and all those beautiful student discounts, but you started it off. I suppose I should think of something sweeter than that.
Good advice. Use student discounts while you have them.
I know, they're so good. But I have just really loved, I mean, I talked about it before, but the societies that I got involved in just happened to be so amazing, and I met some incredible people, and it was just really good to kind of, you might be the type of person that comes along to university and just does your studies and goes home, and that's also fine. My sister's graduating at the same time as me, and that's exactly the type of student she was. But I just had such a huge part of my university experience was really getting involved in different things, and meeting different people and trying different things out. And I just think being a student is a really kind of, the University of Glasgow is just such a safe space to kind of, as Eleanor was saying, discover kind of who you are outside of your family and away from home, and what kind of person you want to be, and what kind of things interest you, and what you're passionate about. And so I think that all of that combined just makes the University of Glasgow such a great place to be a student. And it's certainly been a huge part of my student experience. So yeah, I've loved it.
No, that's brilliant. Eleanor, what about you? What's the best thing about being a University of Glasgow student for you?
I think it just comes down to people, both the people that you meet through societies and through living in halls and stuff. But I think also the academics make it for me, because I do the arts, right? They're very eccentric. They're a bit bizarre. I remember in first year English, you walked in and we were doing a section on poetry. And we just walked in, this guy started singing a poem and this beautiful falsetto, and we didn't expect it. And it was just a bit like, what is going on? But it was just so eccentric and lovely. And I think, yeah, just being surrounded by people who are so passionate about learning and about their subjects and about teaching, and making you feel that way too. And yeah, I think quite often we put lecturers on like this high horse and this high peg of they're so detached from me. But I think send them an email if you like their lecture, and they normally love it. And give them banter and chats and stuff. And they're just people too. And I think, yeah, that's.
No, I would agree. I think because I was an art student as well, I did history of art at the university, and the academics definitely made it. And they're, like you said, they're so enthusiastic, and they really do just fill you with that enthusiasm for the subject as well. And I think for me, it kind of melds a bit of what you guys said together, and it's that community aspect of it. It really does feel, this is going to sound really, really cheesy, but there's definitely that kind of team UofG atmosphere when you're at Glasgow. It's definitely a community. Like I said, I've got friends from my subject. I've got friends who did completely different degrees, and they're people that I still know today. And it is that community element of it. And I still run into my dissertation supervisor sometimes in the streets, and I still talk to him. And I think that community aspect, and I think also like once you're part of Team UofG, you never really stop being part of the university. It's definitely a community aspect, and that's always been my favorite part of being a student. Thank you guys so much for answering all the questions. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. We've had a really great time answering them. Really sorry that Ahmed couldn't join us today, but hopefully we've given you something to think about and answered all the questions that you've put through. Thank you everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you at the University of Glasgow one day. Thank you.
Thank you.